It's really exciting when you're up there and you're jamming out in one of those moments and you hear something like that inspires you to do something that you've never done. You'll hear somebody play something and you're like, oh, I can do that. I could play that. Or when it comes back around again, maybe I'll play a harmony part to it, or just something that creative in the moment thing is what I really like about music.
Here we are on the Weird Music Podcast. Today, it's an honor for me to say, we have one of the best musicians of our time on the Weird Music Podcast, and that's Mr. Michael Cleveland. Michael's a fiddle player. He's won the Bluegrass Fiddle Player of the Year award now 12 times. Won the Grammy in 2019 for Best Bluegrass Album. Michael's from Indiana. I'm here in Ohio, Midwesterner, and he's going to be at Birds of a Feather Music Festival this upcoming weekend. So yeah, Michael, really glad to dive into some things here with you. Michael was born blind and he's partially deaf, which, his music speaks for itself. But when you give his stuff a listen, to just know the unique circumstances he's had and how he's overcome that adversity and really just a tremendous body of work. It's inspiring to say the least. And so Michael, man, it's great to speak with you today. And to start this off, I think it'd be great for you to take us back in the time machine to your early days as a musician. I recently, during this pandemic, got into playing music myself. I want to hear from you, though. Like, how did you first, become acquainted with bluegrass, get into the fiddle, and what was that like for you starting out? Like, when did you know you really wanted to give this thing your all?
Well, thanks, Dan. Thanks a lot for having me. And so I guess I got started. I don't know. My family never played. None of them ever played any music, but my grandparents loved bluegrass. And they wanted to start a bluegrass association in Henryville, Indiana, where I was born. And they wanted to have a place where the musicians could come and learn, beginners could come and learn to play, but to be around players of all different skill levels. They started that a little before I was born. And then I guess from the time I was about 6 months old, they started taking me to their bluegrass shows. And I should also say there were also other shows going on in the area on other Saturday nights. So pretty much every weekend, my grandparents were going to see music somewhere. And so they started taking this little 6-month-old kids, like in a stroller, I guess. And I have people from this local area that come up and they remember, I guess, seeing the little kid in the stroller keeping time. But so I was always around it, even though my family didn't play, and would listen to it at the shows on the weekends. And then they had a big record collection and 8-track tapes and cassettes. And I just always look forward to going over to my grandparents' house because that's where all the music was. And I could go to sleep when I was a little kid with my head on the speaker of the 8-track player and just crash and listen to just bluegrass music or fiddle music or whatever it was. So I loved it even then, but when I was 4 years old, and I don't remember much about being 4 years old, but I do remember hearing a fiddle player at one of those local shows play the Orange Blossom Special. And that just, from that point on, I had to learn how to do it one way or the other. And I told my parents that I wanted to play, and I was getting ready to start school that year. I was going to start at the Kentucky School for the Blind, and they had a music program, and they taught violin, classical music, learning the Suzuki method, which is a great way to get started playing. And I would definitely not be able to play if it wasn't for that. I remember walking in the teacher's room and talking to Miss Nolan, and she asked me, what do you know? What is it about the violin that you like so much? And I said, well, I don't know a lot about the violin, but I know a bunch about the fiddle. And I want to learn how to play bluegrass, and I want to learn Orange Blossom Special. And she said, well, that'll be a while. And it was. It took it took a long time. It's a slow process and you learn as you go. But like once I got to the point I was able to play a few things, then I started taking my fiddle to the local jams and playing with a lot of the musicians around here. And a lot of people don't realize, but this is a hotbed for bluegrass music. And there's so many good musicians in this area. And very few of them actually went out on the road and tried to do it for a living. Most of these guys, they have jobs and families and everything else, but just terrific players. And so I was really fortunate to be around all that. So that's kind of how I got started.
Keeping time in a stroller.
Yeah, I guess.
Come a long way, obviously, and you've really distinguished yourself with your own style. And what do you think it is about the way you play fiddle that's progressive or unique to you?
I've always liked the energy of this music. I like the fact that when you listen to those shows and you find a old bluegrass live album or a show or something, that when it's time to start, man, they run out there and they hit it. And it's a fast instrumental or whatever, and I just love that intensity. And I like that in fiddlers also. So that's a lot of what I listen to is people like Benny Martin and Scotty Stoneman and people that played that way, that played with a lot of fire. And that's what I try to do. And yeah, I try to just play what fits the song, I guess. But I've had a lot of people say, yeah, you can definitely tell it's you.
So Michael, being Grammy Award winner, you're at the top of your craft. I want to talk to you about your practice routine and the balance you have between, being someone who's put decades into your craft, but still practicing. Like, what is the balance between being on the road and practicing? Do you still have a practice routine?
I've always been bad about a practice routine, and I would like to develop one at some point. But I do play a lot, and that helps. Now, I do, if I'm working on something, if I'm learning music or something like that, I'll definitely be practicing that. But an everyday practice routine is something that I have not developed yet. But having said that, I'm in the studio every day. When I'm not on the road, I'm recording music here at home. Like a lot of people send me tracks to play on, and I'll overdub a fiddle part or a mandolin or whatever it is they need on it. And I'd stay pretty busy with that when I'm at home. But kind of getting back to what you said earlier about, practicing and staying inspired and making you want to do it. I think if you're passionate about whatever it is you're doing, whether it's pottery or being an athlete or being a musician, then you can't help but do it. You can't help but practice. You can't help but want to play or, do your art or whatever it is, because that's all you think about. You're consumed with it.
One thing we talk about a lot on this podcast is how music is a form of communication. Like, there's an emotion on stage and the crowd gets imbued with that emotion. There's it moves people. And I'd like to hear from you, like, on stage, can you describe the kind of effect, you'd hope to have on the crowds, on the listeners?
Oh, I mean, we try to vary the mood throughout the show. But mainly, I mean, we try to put on a high energy, fast paced show. Yeah, so that's really what we're going for.
Just really lighting that fire.
Yes, yeah, that's what we like.
So when you're in the zone on stage, fast paced, uh, the kids these days say balls to the wall. You
Uh
know,
huh.
when you're in the zone, like, what does that feel like? Do you ever get nervous before playing to a big crowd? Like, would you say you probably feel similar to how the people in the crowd feel?
Yeah, yeah. There's always that anticipation, and then we've been doing a lot more things. We've tried to be a little more spontaneous here lately. When you're playing just traditional bluegrass or any kind of music, really, not just traditional bluegrass, any kind of music, it's so easy to get hung up on. And this is me talking like this is what I do. It's so easy to get hung up on playing the arrangement, getting everything perfect, which never happens. I mean, you just might as well count on it. It's gonna happen how it happens. And yeah, you can practice and you can do whatever you want, or at least I can. But when it comes time to play, it's just gonna come out the way it comes out. But we are trying to jam a little more and not be as hung up on just making everything perfect. And that's been really fun for me. And I think for the rest of the guys as well. And I think everybody's starting to pull out things, and a lot of things that I've never heard them play before. So it's really exciting when you're up there and you're jamming out in one of those moments and you hear something like that inspires you to do something that you've never done. You'll hear somebody play something and you're like, oh, I can do that. I could play that. Or when it comes back around again, maybe I'll play a harmony part to it, or just something that creative in the moment thing is what I really like about music.
So staying on that train, a lot of people, especially classically trained musicians, are all about getting it exactly right instead of, what you mentioned, that creative, in the moment, spontaneous way. And my question for you is, what would you say to any of those musicians out there that don't play spontaneously in that kind of creative way? Why would you say they should consider doing that?
Well, classical is a lot different than bluegrass. Classical, there's a reason that it's so strict in the way that it is, because that's the way those pieces were written by Mozart and Beethoven, all those great composers. And so you wouldn't want to deviate that. I wouldn't think. And they are very strict about it. I can tell you because I got in trouble a lot because I wouldn't play the right. I think it's good though to try and improvise and to put yourself in those kind of situations, because that's how you're gonna come up with things and be challenged with trying to do things that you wouldn't do ordinarily. And yeah, it's just a different way of thinking about it that you wouldn't do.
Personally, I love the risk of it, how
Yeah,
they kind of are willing to go off script and know what's going to happen.
yeah. Sometimes the limb breaks off. You don't make it. Sometimes you do.
And that's kind of the beauty of it.
Yeah.
So Michael, I'd like to ask you now, like, what do your fans mean to you as a musician? Like, do they have some sort of motivational, component in your life?
Oh yeah. When you play the show and you hear from people that they enjoyed it, or you see people that show up that come to these things that have been following you for years, and it's just always good to reconnect, and we like making new fans. We played a lot of bluegrass festivals, and we really enjoy that. But we're uh, starting to get into more performing arts centers, more jam grass festivals, and more left of center festivals, and that's a new audience for us. So we really like playing for that audience.
As a touring musician, life on the road is hard. We've all heard this, how really just taxing it can be to be on the road. And now you're someone doing that in a very, certain situation, with your blindness. And that's something I feel is so inspiring, that you're able to not only tour, but tour at a very high level. My question for you, you've been doing this for a while, and phones and technology recently has really started to kind of change things for touring musicians. And I'm curious from you, how have phones and technology, helped you as a touring musician?
Oh, well, I swore I would never get a cell phone 20 years ago. And now that I have one, it's just, and especially with the iPhone and Apple products, the voiceover or the speech that is used, like every iPhone, you have a setting where you can turn speech on where it'll read the touch screen. And that has just been amazing for me, because before I got an iPhone, I wasn't able to text or definitely not do email. I had a computer here at the house, so I'd have to wait till I got home to check email and try to take care of everything. But yeah, just to be able to do everything, I hardly ever use a computer anymore, because I can do pretty much everything I need to do on the iPhone. So it's great.
The last thing I want to dive into with Michael, so music, like zooming out, since before time, it's been a centerpiece of culture, like tribal rituals. Music has an element in religion. It's ritualistic. And today, music's a lot like therapy for people, not just people in the crowd, but people who play music. It's therapeutic, it's spiritual. And, we all experienced this over the pandemic. We need music. Music it's a necessary element to a lot of us for our lives. And with that being said, as someone whose role, in culture is to be that musician, what does that role mean to you, Michael?
Well, I mean, I don't know that I've thought of it quite that way, but you're correct, and it's I think it's fans are essential. Musicians are. I mean, it works both ways, in my opinion. I think, and for us, or for me, I should say, just being home and not being able to play for people was really really a hard thing, and something to adjust to. There were a lot of I guess positive things that came from it. Like, I got to spend more time with my family and be home more than I have since I was 18. But we did miss getting to play out and play in front of people, and getting to play here in the last couple of months and see the crowds, and people are ready to get out and hear live music again. And it's almost like a new thing all over again. This excitement that's like, yeah, we can actually do this, So it's great.
Well, Michael Cleveland and his band Flamekeeper, they're going to be at Birds of a Feather Music Festival in Morningview, Kentucky, playing Saturday from 7:30 to 9:30. Michael, it's great to speak with you. Anything you want to leave listeners off, your fans off with, what's one thing, you'd like to leave your fans off with here?
Yeah, well, we're really looking forward to Birds of a Feather, and we're going to have a blast. If you want to find out more about the band and you can go to flamekeeperband.com, and you can find us on Facebook at MC Flamekeeper.
Right on. Well, if you're a fan of bluegrass, you like fast music, you like great jams, definitely, acquaint yourself with Michael Cleveland, his band Flamekeeper. Michael, man, great to meet you. Thank you for all that you do. And, I really appreciate you, Michael.
Thanks so much. Thanks for having me on.
Thank you for listening. Shout out to the sponsor, SEM Tickets. We love y'all. We'll see you real soon.